learners. Welcome to today's tourism lesson. My name is Evans Maponya. This lesson is brought to you by the Gauteng Department of Education in collaboration with Saibono Discovery Center. During the lesson, if you happen to have some question, please chat on WhatsApp on this number 079 578 2908. The WhatsApp number is 079 578 2908. The topic for today, grade 12 learners, is sustainable and responsible tourism. And the subtopic, which is our main area of focus, will be the three pillars of sustainable tourism, responsible tourism, and the tourist. Right. Where the lesson will be assessed. The lesson will be assessed in section D of your question paper, that is the final exam paper, and it forms part of question 8 of the question paper, as well as question 1. That's where you'll find this topic assessed in short questions. You'll also come across assessment on this topic in your controlled test, your skills assessment task, in the PET that is upcoming just after next week on the 5th and 6th of August. You'll also come across questions based on this topic during the prelim examination as well as the final examination. Of course, it will also be assessed in the data handling task that is due in term 3. Here are your objectives. By the end of this lesson, you as grade 12 learners must be able to know and understand the following. First, you need to understand the three pillars of sustainable tourism in people, profit, as well as planet. These are your three specific pillars that you need to master at the end of this lesson. You should also have a better understanding on the concepts and background of triple bottom line approach. You also need to know and understand the environment, which is also referred to as the planet. The environment or the planet, you need to make sure that you understand how it is incorporated in the study of sustainable and responsible tourism. So what it entails is good environmental practices such as resource management. We specifically here referring to how we utilize energy and the water resource, the waste management, which is summarized in the 3 R's, that is reduce, reuse, and recycle. You need to also understand the concept of litter control, pollution control, environmentally friendly building, promotion of indigenous flora, control of alien invasive plants in the grounds and gardens. And then on another pillar, which is the economy or profit, Here we will reflect on the role of business, the responsible attitude of tourism businesses towards the people and the environment it affects. So we are going to look at the interaction between business, people, which is social, as well as the environment in which businesses operate. We are going to reflect also on ways to practice this interrelationship between business, the social aspect, which is people, as well as the environment. We're going to reflect on ownership, employment, procurement of local goods and services, and etc. The social aspect, which is normally referred to as the people, we are going to give consideration to the positives and the negatives of tourism on local communities, as well as their culture and heritage. We are going to look into the concept of corporate social investment, which it is represented by the acronym CIS in tourism. So we are going to look into the financial as well as the non-financial aspect of corporate social investment in support of given by tourism companies or businesses to health, sports, education, and youth projects. So we are going to reflect on how businesses plow back or give back to the communities in which they operate. So it might be in the form of sponsoring sports facilities, education activities, as well as a variety of youth projects that are available. Here are your key concepts as per the ATP or the work schedule. We're going to look at the concept of sustainability and what it means. So if you can look at the definition here, it says it's a way of meeting our own needs, or it is a way of satisfying our own needs without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So much as we are concerned with our own needs, much as we are looking at satisfying our own needs, we must not forget about the future generation, people who will be born years after we have lived. So they have to enjoy the facilities, they have to enjoy all that nature offers to us as well. So as we utilize the environment, we must try to put some reserve for future generation to come and experience. We are also going to look into the concept of sustainable tourism. Remember, the first one was sustainability. And as we further move on with our ATP, it says sustainable tourism. So sustainable tourism suggests tourism that takes full account or full responsibility of its current and future economic, social, and environmental impact, addressing the needs of visitors, the industry, the environment, as well as the host communities. So these are the stakeholders that are involved. You have the tourism industry, you have the visitors, which in our everyday language, we refer to them as tourists. We have to also reflect on the concept of environment and the host communities. All these four stakeholders interplay in producing sustainable tourism. Tourism that is responsible, tourism that takes full account of their actions insofar as the economic, the social, as well as the environmental aspects are concerned. Responsible tourism is one of the concepts that we are to explain or to look at as per our program. Responsible tourism reflects or focuses on short-term actions every one of us can take every day to have less negative impacts on the given destination. So it focuses on our actions or our behavior every day as we interact with the environment, whether socially or economically. So we must take responsibility of our actions to ensure that we preserve the physical environment. Some key concepts would include carbon footprints, which refers to a carbon footprint is a total amount of greenhouse gas emissions that a person, organization, event, or product has produced in a given time frame. Carbon footprints, we are referring to gases that comes out of the process of industrialization. When they produce electricity, they use coal, and the outcome would be a poisonous gas known as carbon monoxide, and that has an impact on the greenhouse or the ozone layer that serves as a screen against excessive heat from the sun. So this gas emission often destroy the ozone layer that shields us from too much heat from the sun. So if that layer is damaged, that ozone layer is damaged, then we often experience excessive heat in the earth that we live. So greenhouse gases, I've given an example with the emission of a smoke called carbon monoxide from the process of producing electricity. Greenhouse gases, of which carbon dioxide, CO2 is an example, contribute to global warming and climate change. So the climate is not what it used to be, and we no longer enjoy the seasonal boundaries. At some point, you have winter in summer, and in some cases, you have summer in winter. You find that it's very hot, but as you check the season, it's winter. So this emission of gases, greenhouse gases, has an impact on the underlying processes that I've just alluded to. Here are the 3 pillars of sustainable tourism that from our subtopic we need to understand. The first one is people, that is refers directly to us as people, as human beings. The second one is the planet, and the last one is profit. The planet is where all these operations occur. We need the planet to live on, and for profit to be derived, this is the ground or the space that is used. So these are the 3 important elements, and they are referred to as the 3 pillars of sustainable tourism: people, planet, profit. and you can simply say the 3 Ps: people, planet, profit. These are your 3 pillars of the sustainable tourism. As we further explore into the 3 pillars of sustainable profit, you have the social aspect, which we say involves people. So another name for the people pillar is the social pillar. Right. The next pillar is the environment. And the third one is the economic pillar. So this one, the environment, is referred to as the planet pillar, and the economic pillar is referred to as profit. So there is an interaction between these 3 pillars of sustainable tourism, but their impacts should be bearable. People, or in their existence, they should be tolerable. We need to be able to tolerate certain actions that is derived from these 3 pillars. As we further triangulate these 3 pillars, they must be equitable. So, meaning that for a certain action that the business does must compensate the social and the environment aspect. Social here, if I run a business, it must employ local people, for instance. And this business must engage, must show some interest in looking after the environment in which they operate. So it also, the activity must be viable. If they run a business, it has to be profitable. Profitable does not only benefits the business, but it also benefits the government, because the government will expect these businesses to pay their returns in the terms of tax. So all these actions must be aimed at sustaining the environment, must be directed towards sustainability. And why sustainability is that there are generations that should live after us, and they should be afforded an opportunity to enjoy the very experiences that we are enjoying. So this is a common diagram to represent the 3 pillars of sustainable tourism. So if we take care of the social aspect, the environmental pillar, and the economic pillar, all this, if they are practiced equitably, bearably, and they are viable, then they lead to sustainability. Everyone benefits in this whole sustainable tourism. That is our focus this afternoon. Key concept and background of the triple bottom line approach. The triple bottom line approach refers to 3 measures of business performance, that is economic, and by economic we are referring to profit, environmental, which is the planet, as well as social, which is people. So we are saying these are triple, which is 3 measures of business performance or of business operation in addressing their profit, in getting profit, whilst not harming the environment, and also letting people benefit from their operations. The traditional way of to measure a business performance was basically to look at its profitability. The profit appears at the end of its financial statement, which is why a profit is often referred to as the bottom line. The triple bottom line concept came into use when world heads of state, world leaders realized that the economic development, the economic processes had some negative environmental and social effects. They affect so badly the environment as well as the social aspect in which they operate. So it was realized that actions of this business was not sustainable to look after the social as well as the environmental aspect. And that as head of states, as delegates from different countries, needed to measure all the effects of development. Therefore, a company's performance not only depends on how much money it's making, that is the profit, and other economic considerations such as job creation, but also what effects it has on the social and the natural landscape, that is our natural environment. The key concepts and the background of the triple bottom line approach, these are entailed in King 3. King 3 refers to the code that regulates cooperative government, that regulates or that rules the businesses in South Africa and requires companies to report on their performance in terms of three aspects, namely their contribution to the economy, their contribution to the environment, as well as to the people, that is social. Electricity is mainly generated from coal. As we look into the environmental pillar or the planet pillar, so we generate electricity from coal, which emits greenhouse gases, which leads to climate change. Now, the good environmental practice would be vital for a successful tourism business to protect the natural environment. Now, how do we manage resources? We need to install energy light saving bulbs in our buildings. So if I were to give an example, I would say businesses that operate in the tourism sector or in any other sector must make use of electricity saving bulbs, so such that we minimize the use of electricity, which we said it's generated from coal, which pollutes the environment and result in climate change. We need to also install renewable energy sources such as solar panels so that the use of electricity is minimized, and that limits the impact of production of greenhouse gases. We also need to encourage guests or tourists to switch lights off when leaving their lights on. They must try and reduce the usage of electricity so that more coal may not be burned. That will reduce the emission of greenhouse gases. We need to also turn down the temperature of our geysers to at least 60 degrees. We should not operate geysers at a maximum of 100 degrees Celsius. That also will help us reduce the impact on our environment and eradicate the situation where we have climate change. As we further proceed with the environment or the planet pillar, we also have to look into the water resource, which is limited to us. We have water scarcity in our country, and we must try and use it sparingly. We must try and save the limited water resource that we have in our country. And these are different ways that can be employed to minimize the usage of water in our country. We must find and repair all leaks. So we must ensure that we don't have dripping pipes, and if we do have, they need to be repaired as a matter of urgency. We need to convert to water efficient flush toilets, which most of the institutions, most of the business subscribe to using the efficient flush toilets with two flush buttons on top. If you are going to relieve yourself not on a serious case, then you'll use the small one. But if it's normal, you'll use the bigger ones. That saves the water usage as well. We need to encourage guest house or accommodation establishment to shower instead of taking a bath. So instead of using 60 liters of water, you may find that you are using only 10 liters of water in a shower. So we also need to encourage guest house or accommodation establishment that we have to reuse towels instead of washing and replacing them daily. The environment pillar, as we look into the waste management, that is encompassed in the 3 R's, which is reduce, reuse, as well as recycle. So I'm going to take you through these 3 R's as a way of waste management in our country. So would say with reduce, we encourage people to use less, buy less, and avoid waste. So we must not overutilize the resources that we have. We must also generate our own products instead of buying, depending on buying. It means we need to have our own vegetable gardens in our yards, then this will relieve us from mass production of vegetable from the agricultural sector. So we need to buy less, avoid waste. For example, avoid printing documents on paper. So we, other than that, we must conduct our thing paperlessly, or rather opt an online communication as opposed to printing on paper. Buy supplies in large quantities to reduce packaging. Use tap water instead of bottled water, and take a short shower. And this will help us to reduce the impact on the environment. Reuse. Use items more than once, for example, plastic bags as well as refillable containers. So every time you buy groceries, it doesn't mean you have to always buy new plastic and get rid of the old ones, because as that pollutes the environment and has an impact on the environment in which we live. The last R, which is recycle. Separate waste material. This is common in most places in our schools where you have rubbish waste being categorized into 3 components, wherein you'll put paper, plastics, and bottle. So separate waste material that can be recyclable, can be transformed into something new that is recycling. Provide separate bins for paper, glass, plastic, as I've alluded to. Use organic waste, that is vegetable peels, as well as fruit skins to produce compost. So these are the best advices to manage littering or waste. As we further move with our environmental pillar, here is what I spoke about. We have this kind of bin provided in most of the public spaces as we move around. So they are trying to control and recycle this material that we normally litter. Provide waste bins which allow for separation of different types of waste, and always think green, do not litter. So such symbols in public spaces also make people to avoid littering or throwing waste all over the environment. Guests and staff need to be informed of a no litter policy. So when you book an accommodation, it should be categorically or clearly stated to the guest that we do not accept or tolerate littering. So they must be taken, they have to be taken through the policies of controlling litter around their space. As we further unfold the environment of the planet pillar, here are examples of types of pollution. We have carbon emission, which we spoke much about, from vehicles, from buildings. We also have noise pollution, pollution from toxic materials. These are kind of emissions or bad emissions that we get from the cars, from domestic use and industrial use in building, the noise pollution. Some spaces are too noisy, and that makes some of the people or some of us uncomfortable, and the pollution from toxic material, where we find industry running their waste into our own river systems, and that has an impact towards maintaining, a negative impact towards maintaining the natural environment. So here are some measures that we can take to alleviate this pollution. Is that we need to maintain our vehicles to ensure fuel efficiency and reduce pollution. So if a car is well maintained, it doesn't smoke, it doesn't use a lot of gas, petrol, so that has a positive impact to the environment. We also have to encourage tourists to use public transport to reduce pollution, because much as tourists are concentrated or utilize one form of transport, then we'll have less carbon emission from vehicles. We need to encourage to use environmentally friendly transport like a bicycle, or we are also encouraged to walk distances on our feet, so that has a positive impact to the environment. We also are advised to use the shortest cuts or the shortest routes and only travel by car when it's necessary. So there are certain distances just that we are walkable, and we are encouraged to use our own food instead of using cars. So this is done to preserve the environment in which we live in. As we further explore the environmental or the planet pillar, environmental friendly businesses refers to the way buildings are positioned, materials that are used, space design, technologies used to run the building, like solar panels, can all help reduce the environmental impacts. So as we look into these buildings, here is a further elaboration on how modern building should be designed in favor of the environment in which they are created. So we need to make use of natural building materials that have a low environmental impact, such as wood instead of steel. So let us prefer using wood rather than steel when we create our buildings. Insulations in walls, ceilings, and floors will keep buildings cool in the hotter months and warmer in the winter months, and this will basically reduce the need for heating and cooling units regularly. We must also employ effective window placement that can provide more natural light and lessen the need for electricity lighting during the day. So the way we position our buildings, the way we position our windows and facilities in that building, it's quite important for us to preserve the environment and more reliance on electricity, while there are some natural means like sunlight, the use of sunlight. With the environmental planet, we also have to reflect on the indigenous flora, that is, plants that naturally occur in a particular area. The alien plants, plants that do not naturally occur in a particular area. So we need to promote indigenous flora and control of alien invasive plants in grounds and gardens. So in our park, we should always take care or eradicate these alien plants, which will lead to the extinction of our indigenous flora in the long run. Tourism business should conserve and plant indigenous species as they use less water. This is another discovery that the natural plants may not need to be watered more as opposed to these alien plants. Alien invasive species should be removed if they threaten indigenous species, and this alien invasive species has a tendency of using more water than indigenous species. I think we have explained this previously. Certain alien species can intensify veld fires or wild fires. So these are examples of indigenous species. You have example of a protea there, and these are invasive alien species in Port Jackson. These are just but an example for you to distinguish between indigenous species in South Africa as well as the invasive species. So this is just to make us aware as to what we are referring to by the two. Now, I want us to switch to the economic pillar or the profit pillar, which has a bearing on the role of business. So tourism businesses are organizations which derive profit directly from tourism. They provide services and products, or we can say they provide goods and services which tourists need when visiting a destination. Through their economic activity, they have a potential of creating jobs, and money is brought into the destination by tourists. So tourists will pay for the services and products provided by this business undertaking. Tourism business also spend money on the products and services they need from other businesses. So they are not self-reliant, they rely on other businesses to provide services. Right, an example, an accommodation sector. An accommodation sector does not produce its own food, but its main purpose is to offer accommodation or beds or an overnight to tourists. But whilst tourists are visiting there, they need other processes. They have needs and wants while they are visiting an accommodation. So an accommodation sector cannot produce their own food, so they will rely on other food retailers to prepare some menus for the tourists that are visiting. Tourism must create economic opportunities and benefits not only tourism companies and their shareholders, but also local or the host communities should be placed at the focal point to benefit from the day-to-day running of this business in terms of in the form of employment, in the form of corporate social investment, plowing back to the communities in terms of giving people around bursaries for their children, building recreation facilities, and giving donation for other community activities in the area. As we further move with the economic or the profit pillar, we are going to look at the role of business. The business has the responsibility or the responsible attitude of a tourism business towards the people and the environment it affects. So they need to portray a responsible attitude in the area within which the business operates. If both the tourist company and the local community profit from a business, and those who are affected by the business are involved and respect is given to them, this will lead to a business sustainable environment. So the kind of operation of the business will be healthy if all the stakeholders benefit, that is the community and the business that operates in that particular region. Ways to manage economic impact will reflect on ownership firstly, community shareholding in the business. So owners must appoint some of the community members as directors, as CEOs of the business. Promotion of local tourism ownership will increase the positive impact of tourism in the area. So as we further move with the economic pillar, Ways to manage economic impacts, where we'll look into employment, that is job creation, a fair recruitment process regarding gender, with regards to gender, disability, and race has to be implemented. We need to create also a decent work and living wages. So reasonable wages should be given to the workers. The protection of staff and communities from exploitation, for example, sexual exploitation, child labor. So the business need to protect all these aspects as they operate in a community. The training skills and skills development, business should support staff so that they can attend training courses, receive formal certificates for skills they've gained, as well as on-job training that must be provided. As we further explore on the economic pillar or the profit pillar, ways to manage economic impact, we must look at procurement, local procurement. So we need to encourage businesses to buy products that are locally manufactured. Local suppliers should be used as far as possible. We cannot, as Gauteng, for example, always when we buy product, we go outside the province and buy from other provinces. So we must first buy from local suppliers before we get out of our own area of influence. This can result in a positive multiplier effect where money spent and respent in the same area. If we use local suppliers, the money circulates around or within the same community. This prevents leakages of money that is generated from tourism business out of the tourist destination. It reduces also the negative impact of transporting goods over long distance into the area. Ways to manage economic impacts, broad-based Black economic empowerment, that is triple BEE, the government policy that seeks to address the economic exclusion or the economic isolation and marginalization of Black South African under apartheid. So most of the Black people benefit out of this initiative by government to redress the past imbalances. It concerns aspects such as ownership, management, staffing, as well as trainings and skills development, enterprise development, and corporate social responsibility. So these are the main interest in implementing the triple BEE approach. The last pillar is the social pillar, which is affectionately known as the people's pillar. The positive and the negative effects of tourism on local communities, culture, and heritage. So on my left, you'd have the positive impacts, and on my right, indicated in red or highlighted in red, is the negative impact of the social pillar or towards the social pillar. Tourism creates job opportunities. This is a positive impact of the social pillar. Local community members can sell arts and craft that showcase to their culture or visitors. So they become entrepreneurs in their own area by selling the arts and crafts that they have created or that represents their culture and heritage. So this is the second aspect. Tourism can benefit the local community with improved access to resources and infrastructure. So when we build say for instance, a stadium around a certain area, so the community will get job opportunities, and other than job opportunities to build the infrastructure, they will have other developments taking place. The roads to the stadium will be improved, and that will benefit the local economy, the local people, because instead of using gravel roads now, they will have nice and smooth tarred roads. So now let's look on the other half or on the other side of the negative of social impact. The negative are issues of crime and violence may increase. So for every development, we see crime following such developments, violence and all sorts of negative things will happen around the area. You'll have cultural changes occurring as the local may want to adopt the culture of tourists instead of valuing their own culture and heritage. So local people at some point become copycats and want to behave like the tourists visiting in their respective area. The money generated by tourism may not be channeled back into the local community. So businesses will at some point not give back to the local community. The positive and negative effects of tourism on local communities, culture, and heritage. Remember, the first one was the positive and negative impacts of business operating in a particular area. So tourism creates an awareness of different tradition, culture, and art forms. Also, tourism creates intercultural understanding and tolerance. So there is mutual benefit between the visiting tourist and the local people, because we learn from their culture and they learn from our own culture. So that is the intercultural understanding that coexists between a tourist and the host community. Local communities absorb new ideas, interests, and values from tourists. So, like we have alluded in the previous slide, that we get some new ideas, interests, and values that we will use to our benefit from. So we learn a lot from them and they learn from us. The negative and social impact, there may be racial tension between tourists and local people. You may find that some tourists will look down upon local people and refer to them as backward nation. So that creates tension which may lead to violence. There may be negative tourist behavior such as public drunkenness. So people will tend to abuse alcoholic beverages, which is a societal problem or it's a social problem. Sometimes privacy is not respected, sacred sites are invaded, and cultural ceremonies are exploited. These are some of the negative impacts associated with the social pillar. The social or the people pillar, as we further assess the social or the people's pillar, cultural heritage is preserved and money can be raised for the maintenance of cultural sites and museums and this is the positive aspect of it. And as we further reflect on the positive, the local community learn to take pride of their culture. So they value their own culture, especially when they are given a platform or an opportunity to communicate their culture, their heritage to other nations of the world. The money generated can be used to uplift the economy. So whatever profit is made can be used towards further development and building infrastructure for the local community, infrastructure such as hospital, infrastructure such as school, infrastructure such as police station. All those developments can be created from the money generated from the profit. Corporate social investment, or CSI, in tourism. So corporate social investment refers to the voluntary support businesses give to communities they operate in. That giving, that hand that gives from business without expecting something in return is known as corporate social investment, which may be in the form of financial support or by giving money to local community to take care of healthcare facilities, sport and recreation facilities, to fund education as well as youth empowerment. So that is the financial support that businesses can provide. The non-financial support refers to, for example, volunteer work by the company representatives in the community, donation of equipment or furniture, feeding schemes. All these are non-financial support that businesses would give. And all this support that we have alluded to is referred as the corporate social investment, or CSI in tourism. Grade 12 learners, I want us to take a 5 minutes break, and when we come back, we'll further explore on this topic of sustainable and responsible tourism. Can we take a 5 minutes break, and we'll continue when we bounce back. Welcome back, grade 12 learners. When we took a break, we had explained the corporate social investment, which we said is, in ordinary language, plowing back to the communities, giving back to the communities. So it's a way in which businesses will support the local communities or will thank the local communities by giving them or sponsoring activities in the community or otherwise, non-financial. Now, let's get into the second half of our lesson, which looks into responsible tourism and the tourist. Right. This deals with the code of conduct for tourist behavior, socially, economically, as well as environmentally. So expected codes of conduct, codes of behavior, or standards of behavior that is expected from the tourist to address the social, economic, and environmental aspect. With the previously, we've been focusing as to how the business behaves socially, economically, and environmentally. Now let's reflect on the behavior of the tourist himself. The code of conduct for tourist behavior. These are a set of rules or guidelines for tourists that help them to understand how to act responsibly and appropriately when visiting a destination. These are a set of rules that are set to help the tourist behave in a becoming manner when visiting destination. That is referred to as the code of conduct for tourist behavior. Here are a list of conducts or behavior that focuses on the social aspect. Research the cultural, ethnic, religious, and heritage practices before you visit. So if you are to visit London, you need to know how they behave, their culture is practiced, the type of ethnic groups, the religious denominations found there, the heritage practices before you visit, so that you behave in line with their cultural, ethnic, and religious practices. Learn a few words in the local language to make a meaningful contact with the local people. If I visit KwaZulu-Natal and I'm Sotho speaking, I need to know a few Zulu words in regard to how they are greeted and how to ask for direction so that you get help when the need arises. Ask for guidance on appropriate dress, behavior, and local food and drinks. So the dress code is important. Say you are attending a funeral in some of the area, there are the way male and female are expected to dress. So please familiarize yourself with the dress codes or the dress and how they dress and behave in certain ceremonies that will help you behave in a manner that is acceptable to the host community. Respect the human rights of the local community and, for example, ask permission before taking a photo. Be vigilant about exploitation of children. Code of conduct for tourist behavior. Economically, we must buy souvenirs and products that are made locally. So let us refrain from buying fake goods and support local business. Ask for guidance on tipping and bargaining practices. Give preference to tourism services that are operated by inhabitants of the destination, that are operated by local people before you get to support people residing outside of that community. The code of conduct for tourist behavior with the main focus on the environmental aspect. You need to be informed about where and how to recycle at the destination. Reduce your consumption of water and electricity during your trip. Do not buy products that are made from plants or animals that are in danger of extinction. That tourism and the tourist, how can a tourist destination attract environmentally people, planet, profit, and conscious tourists? Implement strategies to ensure, so this is the host environment, ways in which they can attract people, a lot of tourists. They must implement strategies to ensure businesses are sustainable and that they act responsibly towards people, the planet, and the economic environment. Ensure that natural assets are well protected and marketed. Implement responsible tourism certification among destination businesses. Ensure that public sites and facilities set good examples of environmental, social, and economic practices. Encourage joint socio-economic and environmental programs at the destination level to which tourists can contribute. Market the destination according to its sustainability ethos, and choose targeted channels to do so. For example, online travel information and booking website supporting ethical travel such as responsibletravel.com. Responsible tourism and the tourist, we now reflect on the contribution of the FTT towards encouraging responsible and sustainable tourism practices. So FTT stands for Fair Trade Tourism. The primary objective of fair trade tourism is to make tourism more sustainable by ensuring that people who contribute their land, resources, labor, and knowledge to tourism are the ones who benefit. And here we are referring to the local community. As we move further, Fair Trade Tourism is a non-governmental organization, and we normally refer to them as NGOs, that promotes sustainable tourism development and responsible tourism management in South Africa, Madagascar, Mozambique, and Zimbabwe. So it operates in these 4 countries, and it ensures that tourism development is sustainable and comes into way to ensure that responsible tourism ways are implemented. FTT initiatives, a certification scheme that provides a trademark or a label to tourism businesses that can show that they meet FTT principles. Assure tourists that the business is responsible. Research, support, and skills building for FTT businesses to encourage tour operators who send tourists to Africa to promote packages to FTT certified businesses. Those are initiatives. Here are the principles of fair trade tourism. Tourists can identify tourism organizations that meet FTT criteria, as the logo will be included on their certified business marketing material. By using the services of FTT certified organization, tourists can be assured of making a contribution to responsible and sustainable tourism. Principle of fair trade tourism, it subscribes to fair wages and better working conditions, fair purchasing or fair buying, fair operations by businesses, equitable distribution of benefits, respect for human rights, culture, and the environment. By using the services of FTT certified organization, tourists can be assured of contributing to responsible and sustainable tourism initiatives. Here are the principle in second. So all participants involved in a tourism activity should get their fair share of income in direct proportion to their contribution of the activity. So democracy, all participants involved in tourism activity should have the right and opportunity to take and participate in decision making that concerns them. The aspect of respect, both hosts and visitors should have respect for human rights, culture and environment, and transparency alludes to the fact that tourism businesses should establish mechanism of accountability, and on the aspect of reliability, the services delivered to tourists should be reliable, consistent, basic safety and security for both host and the visitor should be ensured. And lastly, all these aspects contribute to sustainability. That is, the tourism business should strive to be sustainable as well. Now, let's look at into how this section is assessed. Fair trade tourism, criteria for tourism business: stay where you spend, your spend really counts. Choose fair trade tourism members. Social development projects, for example, infrastructure, education, capacity building, sanitation, and climate change are supported. Local communities benefit economically from job creation. Opportunities are created for guests and contribute to socio-economic development. Businesses buy goods and services from local supply and other fair trade companies. Doing business in the area does not impact negatively on the local community. This has been adapted from www.fairtradetourism.org. Give two examples of fair trade tourism businesses are involved in development projects. I will first read all the questions and we'll go to the apart from social pillar, identify two pillars of sustainable tourism in the fair trade tourism criteria. Explain the two ways in which certified fair trade tourism businesses contribute to the local economy. Give two reasons how the phrase "stay where you spend" really counts. Would encourage responsible tourism practices in South Africa. Let's look at how the answers are. Right, here is the memo, 8.1. As we get back to the question, it says, give two examples of how fair trade tourism businesses are involved in social development projects. And here are your answers. That is through infrastructure, through education, capacity building, health, sanitation, and guest contribution. 8.2, as we get back to the question, it says, apart from the social pillar, identify two pillars of sustainable tourism in the fair trade tourism criteria. Let's look at the answers for question 8.2, which seeks to address the social pillar, where we are required to identify two pillars of sustainable tourism in fair trade tourism apart from the social pillar. Then you'll have the economic pillar, which is the profit, and as well as the environmental pillar, which is the planet, for 2 marks each, and it was awarded 4 marks. If we look at question 8.3, it says, explain two ways in which certified fair trade tourism business contribute to the local economy. Right. And if we look into the memo, it says local residents are employed by tourism businesses. For 2 marks, the tourism businesses buy supplies locally or make use of local services. The businesses or procures goods and services from certified fair trade tourism companies. Right from the scenario, we had captions that say, spend your money, and they wanted to know what the phrase suggests. It says, in responding to 8.4, it says, it encouraged tourists to choose the services of tourism businesses that have been FTT certified. It assures tourism that the money that they spend at this establishment will benefit the local community. Establishments will benefit the local community. It shows other tourism businesses that tourists prefer to support certified establishment. FTT certified companies collaborate to compile and market packages which will appeal to responsible tourists. For 4 marks, 2 facts for 4 marks, and give 2 marks each for 4. Right. Before we preview the next lesson, I just want to recap on what the topic entails. It was responsible and sustainable tourism, and we have looked categorically on the 3 pillars of sustainable tourism, which is people or social. We have looked into the economic or profit pillar, as well as the environmental or planet pillar. We delved much into detail of those 3 pillars, what they entail, and the responsibility of the businesses or the business operation to meet the demands of the 3 pillars. In making profit, they must address the social aspect as well as the environmental aspect. So they must run their business without causing harm to the environment and without corroding the dignity and the dignity of the people living in the area. We also looked into the concept of corporate social investment, wherein companies give back to the communities in which they operate in the form of money to build or to pay for health facilities, education in the form of bursaries, and all other maintain other needs of the community. That is the financial aspect of it, and the non-financial part of corporate social investment. We have alluded to volunteerism by these workers or people who run businesses in a specific area. They may contribute their corporate social investment by donating their labor to certain community projects and many other things that doesn't involve money, like feeding scheme and so on. That is the core of discussion of sustainable tourism and responsible tourism. We looked into also the factor of fair trade. We have factored fair trade tourism, which is an organization that see to it that businesses up their game or encourage businesses to up their game in acting responsibly towards the people, towards the economy, as well as towards the environment. So they provide them a certification so that when tourists see that this business has or practices fair trade principles, then it means They care about issues of responsible tourism. They care about the environment in which they operate. So those are some of the pertinent aspects that this lesson entailed. And for the next lesson coming next week, Thursday, on this platform, the 31st of July, from 14:30 to 1600 hours. The topic will be method to obtain customer feedback and measure customer satisfaction. So this is the next lesson for discussion. And on that note, our discussion for this afternoon ends here. Enjoy the rest of the afternoon, and hopefully you will prepare well for the upcoming PET. I think this content that we have interrogated today will help you up your marks during the PET that will be written on the 5th and the 6th. And just a reminder for you, this is a compulsory component of your SPA, and if you miss it, you will not be resulted at the end of the year. So make sure that you attend mediation sessions that start on Monday, the 28th, up until the 4th of August, so that you are fully prepared for the sitting and the formal administration of the PET. Thank you for being my audience. Till we meet next week.